So, Brent, let's lean into that a little bit because one of the things that is so key to a pure desire group is that piece of being honest in a group of all men, all women who've been on the same road, on the same path that you're on. And so, even though we know that there's this shared experience, there still is that fear of being honest in that context. Why is this?
Yeah, to take some language from Michael Dye, he talks about protective personalities, and we go into that a little bit in the Seven Pillars of Freedom workbook. In Pillar 3, where Harry Flanagan labels those protective masks that we
Hmm.
wear.
Yeah.
And Mike, I love Michael's language in the Genesis process. He always asks this question. He says, "Why do I do the things I do? What's the benefit for me?" So we always want to explore the why. There's always a why for everything that we do, whether it be good or bad. There's a reason why we do it. And a lot of times it's around protection. And again, we don't set out typically to do harm to ourselves or others, but a lot of this is to avoid the pain and the discomfort of life, and we gravitate towards unhealthy ways to cope with that. And so some of these protective masks that we wear, some examples: anger, the hero mask, the rescuer, overcheater, perfectionist, the critic. Those are all meant to create this bubble around ourselves
Yeah.
that we can't get
Right.
hurt by others. And so people coming into group bring those masks with them, and part of the process of the group is kind of break through that and create a safe environment where we can just be real versions of ourselves. We don't have to pose anymore. John Eldridge uses the term the poser in Wild at Heart. We don't have to be posers anymore. We can be real. We can be authentic. We can bring our true authentic selves, our pains, our sorrows. The fact that I relapsed this last week, and you come into group and you have a bunch of men or women who are going through betrayal and beyond with you, that understand where you're coming from because they're going through the same thing,
Yep.
and they can affirm you. Not that we, as Nick was saying, approve of this choice of behaviors, but they can affirm you that you are not dysfunctional, or that you are a broken person and not a reject by having this. Okay, because we get in our minds that we're the only person that's dealing with this,
Yep.
and that's where that shame thing and some of that stuff that you're talking about, Trevor, with how we grow up and the unintended messages we get from our families. It's not okay to share our feelings with each other. It's not okay to show fear or show emotion.
Hmm.
And so and some of those are overt messages, and some of them are covert messages. But in any case, we get this message growing up that's unsafe to be our authentic selves. And we got to pretend to be something else, and that's reinforced when we walk into church. Because what's
Yeah.
the question that's always asked? How you doing? And the expected answer: I'm doing great.
Yeah.
And,
Blessed.
but
Yeah.
I'm blessed.
That's right.
Yeah, but once you start, talking about real life, then people just shut down because they don't know what to do with that.
And we wear those masks because we think that's what we need to do for people to accept us and like us.
Yeah.
And we've listened to an idea under the surface that says if they really knew, if they knew all of your stuff, if they knew all the things that you've done, they would reject you. And that fear of rejection, I think, keeps a
Yes.
lot of people trapped in the lies because we want to be accepted. Like we
Yeah.
want to be a part of our social systems and our
Yeah.
families. And if there's a lie that's telling us if I'm really known, I'll be rejected and alone, no one's pursuing that way of
Yep.
living. And it thankfully is very often a lie that when we walk into the light in appropriate ways, committed to pursuing honesty and a change of life, that many of those people that we feared would reject us actually have the opportunity to affirm their love for us, to affirm their commitment
Yeah.
that I'll walk through this with you, not to act like the issues and the behaviors are fine and no big deal. That's not it at all. But to say there's going to be a sincerity of change that only happens when we can be known. And the other piece that I see, and I think this was in my story and for a lot of men, while we can maybe get to a place of acknowledging, well, yeah, a lot of people maybe struggle with lust or pornography, there's always a piece of our story that convinces us that we're uniquely bad, that somehow makes our story a little bit worse, a little bit more
Yeah.
evil or wicked, and that fear of, and if they knew that piece, then they would know I'm really the worst of all, and they'd get rid of me. And it's kind of that old phrase that says the devil is in the details, right? I really think the enemy uses that against men and women to say, well, you can share this far,
Yeah.
but if you go all the way, and what happens is we get trapped by the little bit left that nobody knows. It's just like, I can't really share everything because of that little bit. And yet what I find over and over in group is like, while that little bit might be a different from person to person, we all have it,
Yeah.
right? We all have that bit of our story that,
Yep.
well, they don't know how often it was for me, or they don't know the kind of pornography that I'm drawn to. They don't know the sorts of things that trigger lust and
Yeah.
just make me feel like I'm so broken, I'm
Right.
so wicked. And again, while it's different from person to person, that fear is universal.
Yeah.
And so if we could acknowledge that and just say, man, the enemy is trying to keep us trapped in lies and fear, but if we would come out into safe community where that's welcomed,
Yeah.
it really is so incredibly liberating and life-giving.
And I think it's really like, just what comes to mind is how the church tends to handle specifically sexual sin. And this is not, I want to be clear, even as I'm getting into this, I'm not saying that the church is this awful place that, shouldn't have people step down from ministry or remove them from positions of authority. But I will say, as someone who was struggling for 15 years of my life, sitting in church or going on to Twitter or the internet and seeing that another fallen pastor was ostracized from their community, and it's like, oh, okay, well, so whether that was the intent or not from that church, that was a message that reinforced it's not safe to be honest about my struggles, or it's not safe to ask for help. So I think in some ways that can also perpetuate the issue. And so I think that my encouragement would not be that churches don't take the necessary steps they need to in order to protect their congregation. But I do think here's what I would say. We need to think about how we're communicating it, what is being presented, how it's being presented, in thinking who's going to receive this. Because there may be men or women sitting in our church that are also receiving this. So I just think a little bit more thought should also go into that, maybe help with the cultural stuff.